we are back for our 5th episode of the Panther Podcast. I'm Piper Blodgett. I'm in 12th grade, and I'm your guest host for today. Did you listen into last week's episode with elementary students talking about their field trips? If not, be sure to check it out. Before we begin today's episode, let's start with the Panther Roundup, where we will fill you in on what is happening at LRS. If you know of any local events that our listeners might be interested in, you can reply in the comments. Varsity baseball and softball teams had their first week of games in the beautiful weather. This week there will be a special guest at Lisbon, and we've had them here before. Do you know who it is? Hopefully, you guessed Recycled Percussion. They'll be here on Wednesday to hang out with us, Blue School and Bath students. We are so excited to see them again. Next week we're on vacation. Hopefully it'll be a beautiful week. Coming up the week after vacation, 5th and 6th grade students are headed to Nature's Classroom once again. Well, that's it for the Panther Roundup. Be sure to check out the school calendar on the Panther website for upcoming events. And now, back to today's episode.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Chavana. I'm a senior in 12th grade. Pleasure to meet you.
Mrs. Gadapy, what exactly is National Poetry Month?
Well, Piper, I'm glad you asked. April is National Poetry Month in the United States. Launched by the Academy of American Poets in April 1996, National Poetry Month is a yearly occasion that celebrates the important role in our culture that poets and poetry has, and that poetry matters. It has become the largest literary celebration in the world, with tens of millions of readers, students, K-12 teachers, librarians, booksellers, literary events curators, publishers, families, and of course, poets, marking poetry's importance in our lives. We are lucky enough to live near Franconia, where Robert Frost once lived. In fact, President John F. Kennedy once gave a speech about Frost and poetry. He praised how Frost was not afraid to speak truth to power, and that when power leads man towards arrogance, poetry reminds him of his limitations. When power narrows the area of man's concern, poetry reminds him of the richness and diversity of existence. When power corrupts, poetry cleanses. Poetry gets to the heart of subjects in a unique way.
That was very insightful, and I knew you were going to talk about Robert Frost. Miss Lieberman, can you tell us a bit about the spring concert and how poetry recitations are fitting in?
Thank you very much. Our spring concert for 4th through 12th grades, including the band and choir, will be on June 6th at 6 p.m. in the school gym. A music concert, a school concert, is about showcasing what students have been working on all semester and giving them the opportunity to get up in front of their classmates and their families and the community and show off what they've been working on. So when we were talking about National Poetry Month, when it comes to reading poetry out loud, that is also a performing art, which means it belongs with music at our performing arts showcase. So at this year's spring concert on June 6th, we will have some singing, some poetry reading, some instrument playing, some more singing, some more poetry, some more instruments, and a real celebration of the performing arts at our school.
Seems like it's going to be very fun.
That's the hope.
Considering that both me and Caitlin are going to be taking part in the poetry recitations, why don't we talk about that for a couple seconds?
Okay, I'm going to be reading Harlem by Langston Hughes, and it goes a little bit like this. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or faster like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode?
That was really nicely done. Poetry is something that, as Mrs. Gadapy said earlier, gets to the heart of things, which I think is part of why I love it as much as I do, because it's a way that you can express how you feel maybe without outright stating it. And I think that that's one, a very important skill to know. And two, it's something that can be very soothing for a lot of people. Mrs. Gaddafi, Miss Lieberman, would the two of you like to read your favorite poems?
Sure. I'll start with a poem by American poet Mary Oliver. And the title of the poem is Wild Geese. And I thought that was important to share right now because I'm driving by and the geese are back. And that's exciting. It means it's spring. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
It's very pretty.
I have brought today, so when we were choosing the poems for our poetry recitation this June, we set about choosing poems by poets who either came from New England or worked in New England, by which I mean wrote at least some of their work while living in New England. So when it came to me choosing a poem, I went back to my high school days and chose a poem by Elizabeth Bishop, a 20th century American poet who, it just so happens, went to the same high school I did in Massachusetts. This poem is entitled One Art. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names, and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch. And look, my last, or next to last, of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I own, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster.
Thank you. That was also very pretty. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this episode of the Panther Podcast. Thank you to our listeners for also joining us and continuing to learn about what's going on here at Lisbon Regional School.